Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So, carrying on with the quick vids for the G11P, we have another receiver. This one is the FS-R7P. So this one, we've got 7 channels. So on the side here, we've got channels 1 to 5. Then, let's get something I can poke at it with. So these first two are channels 6 and 7. We've then got the sense port and the servo port. It does give you a little legend here on the pinout, but as a rule on these, all you've got to remember is the little indentations, they are always your signal wires. The ones at the flat side are your negative, center your positive. We've then got a bind button. We've also got the little power LED. We've got this port, which is bind, which I've explained in a few videos, does come in really handy. So if you need to bind and you've broken the bind button, I've seen a few people stab these in and break them. You only need to press them. It's not, it's just a soft press. You don't need to jab at them. But if for whatever reason that's not working, you can put the bind pin in. Also, if this is buried way down deep in your model, you can use a normal servo extension cable and put the bind plug in that, so you can have it external to your model, so you can bind it that way if you can't get to the bind button. Do find that useful in RCs where you've got like a waterproof receiver box that's all screwed in and you want to bind it to another transmitter. It's handy to have an external plug you can just plug in. Up from that, we have the BVD and VCC. So the two external pins on this will be negative and positive for the BVD, but you've also got negative and positive. So if you were running it in a nitro RC and you wanted to use this port to power it, you can. I believe you can do it on the bind port as well, but it just gives you a few more options. Now, the one thing you'll need to remember with this one, because it can do telemetry, so we can have sensors, this one will bind in 2-way, not 1-way. Can bind them in 1-way, but it won't bind in 2-way to get the best out of it. So let's jump to transmitter now. So if we jump into us menus, first thing we're going to do is jump to a new model menu. So we'll jump to a new memory slot. You're going to come in here and we can go to name. So if we quickly just delete all that, and so if we just name it FS-R7P, don't forget to click on the tick to lock the name in and you'll see it appear at the top, and then we can back out. We can back out of that. Next, we're going to have to go to us bind. I'd always set the failsafe. So I set mine to no output. Then they'll just, your servos and your ESC will just stay in its central position if you lose signal. Then we can go to bind set. So you can go routine or fast. Fast will give you a quick response time, but generally shorter range. Routine, you get a reasonably quick response time and the longest range. RF standard, you can bind in 1-way, but you won't get any telemetry or anything, but it should bind. You really, to get the best out of this, want it in 2-way. RX type, it's standard because it's not an ESC, so we'll leave that as standard. Now this is where you need to choose what outputs you've got. So PWM, pulse width modulation, is basically what most standard servos and speed controllers use. Then your port setting is iBus or S-bus, depending on what the device is that you're going to plug into these extra ports. For me, I'd leave it as standard PWM and iBus. If you've got, for whatever reason, you can use PPM. So you've got iBus and S-bus on PPM as well. Usually really old kit that'd run like that. So output really you want on PWM, iBus. Servos, if you know you've got modern servos, they should work fine on digital. Really old servos, you want analog. And if you know exactly what your servos are, They should say in the actual instructions for servo, but the majority of stock servos will have a refresh rate of 333 Hz. So if you want, you can set it to that, and then it's running exactly what your servos will work at. So next we need to go back to our little receiver. I'm going to press and hold the bind button. I'm going to plug into the bind port, and you'll see we've got fast flashing light. So let's set it to bind.
Binding successful.
We can see it's now bound. If I come out, you can see we've got as RX, so it's the receiver voltage. Now if you're running it off a LiPo pack like I am on this one, then it's going to give you the battery voltage on that, so you'll get an idea of what your pack is. If you're running it off an electronic speed controller, the battery elimination circuit, or BEC, in the ESC will have a voltage set. So if it's set to 6 volt, you'll get that, and it'll just be stationary all the time. It won't go down. But that's your basic setup. So if we get our servo and we connect it first to our bottom port, so that's port 1, we've got a steering. If we then connect to our second port, we've got a throttle. Then you've got channels 3 all the way to 7. So let's say we want to configure something for channel 7. I think that's port 7, yep, at top. So we've got that connected into that port. I'll just drop that down for a moment. So then we'd come in, we'd go to his auxiliary, we'd go down to channel 7. Once we're on channel 7, you can give it a name. So whatever you want to call it, you've either got custom name where you can name it, or you've got some pre-installed ones. So let's say this is shift. So if we then come out, then you need to give it a control. So if it's a shift, you might have a 2-point shift. So we'll set it to K, and then you can see when you press the button, it's going to move the servo and shift you into your high or low gear. And that's the same for all the channels. You can literally work your way through, and you can assign from channel 3 all the way to channel 7. So if we look on the actual receiver itself, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6 and 7. So you can work your way through on all those. The other thing that I'll show you on this one, so if we pop out back to his main menu, you've got the battery voltage detection cable. So on this one, we do have the little fin, so you know which way round it goes. If for whatever reason you've chopped this off and put a normal plug on it, the black pin goes to the outside. So if we just plug this in, if you want to monitor the LiPo that the RC is actually operating from, you only need to connect the positive, because the negative is connected through your ESC, then to your receiver. You've got a full circuit. So if you just put positive to it, you'll get the battery voltage reading. If, say, you're running a rock crawler and you've got a separate battery pack that's powering your lights, and you want to keep an eye on that because it's a LiPo. So if we just give it positive, you'll see we don't get anything because there's no circuit back to negative. So in this case, you use the negative pin as well, and then you can monitor your external LiPo. If you're running it off speed controller, electronic speed controller, all you need to do is go to the positive pin that powers into your speed controller. So basically all you have to remember, if it's the LiPo that's powering your actual ESC, it would be exactly the same as this. We'd just have a speed controller in between this. But if it's the battery that's ultimately powering your receiver, you only have to give it positive to get it to work. if you plug the negative in, it won't do anything untoward, it won't break anything. But if you accidentally plug this negative into positive on the battery that's feeding this, it'll cause a full ground loop, and it'll definitely destroy this cable. It will probably also destroy your receiver. So if it's the battery that in any way is powering this receiver, be it directly or through an ESC, Flysky recommend taping up the negative, because if you accidentally plug the positive into the negative, it won't do anything at all. The only other thing is, if it's an external battery, it doesn't matter if you plug them in the wrong way around, it doesn't do anything. So if you plug them in the wrong way around, it'll do nothing at all. Because it's not causing a dead short back to the main battery. You just won't get any reading, so you're safe with them. If it's going on to an external battery, just be very careful not to plug the negative into the positive if it's the battery that in any way is powering this receiver. So that's the first look at the FS-R7P. It's quite a small footprint. It will do sensors, it'll do BVD, you've got two-way telemetry, so you get your signal strength and everything. You've got a nice length antenna, so you should get pretty decent range. We've got an IP rating of PPX4, so it's splash proof. It does have the bind button, which is really convenient, but if it is in a tight waterproof case, all screwed down, you could use a extension from the bind port and just plug your bind plug into that. But yeah, that's just the first look at it. I will do more videos on telemetry and everything else, so I'm just working my way through all the stuff for this G11P. Must admit, so far it's shaping up to be a really nice transmitter and lots of receiver options. So thanks again for watching Wtf Rc Cars. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, share to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.